Hey, team. Welcome to Benchmarked, the leadership, coaching, and mental performance podcast with Coach Mess and Coach LaRock. What a treat we have for you today. With us is a very special guest who we cannot wait to chat with. In her career with Softball Canada, she has not only won gold and silver at the Pan Am Games, she propelled Canada to an Olympic bronze medal in 2020 at the Tokyo Olympics. However, I think the most exciting part of today is that, like JG and I, she's also a catcher, just way better and way younger. I am speaking of none other than Team Canada's own Natalie Wideman. Natalie, thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate you being here with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited, and I'm glad I can be with my fellow catchers.
Now, the other thing I was saying, and I know I did an advanced scouting report. I know you don't just catch; you play pretty much anywhere. I know you're all over the infield. Do you play shortstop as well, too?
On the junior national team, I played shortstop a bunch, but it was kind of like not necessary. It happened really randomly. So on the senior team, that's not my forte. Yeah. Everywhere other than that, on the infield, I am very comfortable with, but shortstop, I'll leave that to Janet. She's a stud there, so she's got it handled.
Outfield? Do we venture out there?
I'd rather not. I could. Kelly Rafter, if you need me, cool, but it's not my preference. I love the dirt. So
as a catcher, it was for me, it was a tough transition towards the end of my career. Like I played up until I was 40. And the guys I was playing with were still really good, competitive. And I remember they're like, you're getting older, you'll save your legs. You want to pitch a little bit. So they put me out in left field, and the center fielder, Scott Rainey, was a Team Canada center fielder. He was an absolute rock star. So I would stand about 3 feet from the foul line and I'd say, Scotty, I'll take anything to my right. You take it. And yeah, man, he had range. And I don't know, mentally, being a catcher and being so close to the action, being out there, I was struggling mentally. I didn't like it. I probably wasn't very good, but I just didn't enjoy it being out there.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, I was pitching, and then I was like, okay, this is not for me, but I still want to touch the ball every single time.
Yeah.
So even going to like second base or third base, I'm like, the ball, like I would love that, please.
I was playing. I was in intercounty. I was playing for Brantford. I was in right field. Don't ask me what I was doing in the outfield. So in my head, I'm like, okay, there's a runner on second. If you get a fly ball, if you go this way, it's going to tag, throw to third. If it's a base hit, throw to your cutoff man. All these things are going through my head. Next pitch, the ball's hit to me. I forgot everything. I was just like, get rid of the ball. Just throw it somewhere. Like
just give it to them. Exactly. Let them do it.
Yeah. So let's start out. How did you, now your family, like one of the big cornerstones of our shows is talking about family and sports and the influence of family on us. Your family, you come from a ball family. So your brothers both played. Tell us a little bit about that. How were you influenced by that?
I mean, right out the gate, I was always at the ball field. I mean, both my parents, one of them would be taking one brother to one field, one would be taking the other to the other. So it's like, Nat, like you're tagging along. And eventually I was like, okay, I think I should be doing this too. Like, it doesn't seem that difficult. Like, what? So I would play with them. I would throw with them. They would always try to throw it as hard as they could so that they could make it more difficult on me. And they would just tell me to toughen up. And I was like, okay, that's it. Like, I'm going to be better than them. That was kind of like my motivating force from the get-go. And they finally accepted that I am. So it's really, really nice.
Oh,
yeah. So, I mean, that was always involved in our life. We were always considered the baseball family. Parents were always like, how do you do it? And my parents loved the fact that we were so tired that we couldn't get in trouble.
Yes.
We were occupied, we were focused, we were learning these skills that were going to be valuable in other areas in our life. And they thought that was worth the investment. Very
cool. Now, so to me, people don't necessarily volunteer to be, when you said I wanted to be part of every pitch, for me, that's how I started catching. I think I was 8. And I wanted to have an influence. If I wasn't pitching, I wanted to catch. I wanted to be. So how can you tell us a little bit of how that happened for you?
So my oldest brother, Aaron, was a pitcher, and my middle brother was a catcher, Jordan. And I knew that I just wasn't built for the pitching side of things. I'm solid 5'2". Don't have the levers for that. So I knew that wasn't really it. And I loved how tough my brother was. I always thought he was the most hardworking individual. And I based that on his position a lot, but really it was him. But I was like, man, he's really tough. I want to be tough. I want to do that dirty work and just like block balls and like make the pitcher look really good. All those things were just really interesting to me. And it was very foreign because not a lot of girls in my age category on my team wanted to do that. I was like, I'll do it. No one else wants to do it. Like, I'll learn. Like, I was ready for that unknown of the challenge of what catching really meant and brought. So that was cool.
And besides your brother, who's your mentor when you started getting into the position?
I think as a coach, Roger Davis was a really big influence because of his ability to teach me the mental side of the game at a pretty young age. And I liked him allowing me to fail and try different techniques for calling games and whatnot and talking to me in between innings. I thought that was huge. And then when I first saw Softball Canada play, I was in awe of Kaylee Rafter and Erin Cumstone, the two starting catchers with Team Canada. And I was just, they had such different styles, but I thought that was really cool that you didn't have to be the same size, the same strengths in certain areas, that you could kind of be your own individual back there and utilize your strengths to your advantage. So just seeing those differences was really inspiring for me to kind of take on. I'm 5'2" and I can still be a really good catcher. I just have to learn what my strengths are behind the dish.
How were you mature enough to have that conversation with her? Well, you literally saw two different styles and you're like, oh, I don't have to be like, did that come back to the gentleman you're talking about that kind of introduced the mental part of the game?
Yeah, I think that was huge. I also was playing with a lot older women when I was young. So I think I was in grade 8 or 9 and I was playing with girls coming back from their first year of university. So I was exposed to a lot of mature aspects. And I've always been kind of an old soul, but having those women around me and teach me things, I had to catch up. I had to ask questions. I had to learn what it took to get to the next level.
And it was super cool. You mentioned calling pitches, which is like a foreign thing for some, because at some levels, it's just like the coaches are calling pitches and the catchers don't get a feel. My personal opinion, I would love for catchers to call their own games. And I think that's super cool that your coach would let you do his thing. And then you'd have the conversation, why'd you call that pitch 2-0? What did you see in the hitter's swing that made you think that this would be the right pitch to call? But you get to learn from it. So can you speak to us a little bit about that, about calling pitches and that freedom, I guess you had or have?
Yeah. Like, I think back then it was incredible to have that time in between innings that he was investing in me and my pitcher to have those conversations. And I think it's even relevant today at the age of 30, I'm still doing it in between innings. Hey, Kaylee, hey, whoever, coach, what do you think I should have done here? Or why did she hit this when I thought that was the best pitch? Like, what's going on? And just kind of always having that growth mindset, because as we spoke to before, it's about evolving, and like the hitters are evolving, the pitchers are evolving, like everyone's evolving. The game in general is evolving. So I think having that freedom at a young age and being exposed to failing and it being okay and failing really quickly was huge for my development, like mentally and in the game of softball in general.
You just summarized like 6 of our shows in the 6 sentences.
Yeah,
literally.
We'll wrap it up.
Natalie, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for
Keep
having us
crushing
on
it.
your show. Oh man, wow. So we always say failure is fertilizer for your future. So if you call a pitch and somebody hits it out of the park, and you're like, okay, I always say as a catcher, you're as close to AI as you could possibly be, because you always have to adapt and learn and evolve, and you got everything going on in front of you. That's why I fell in love with the position and studying. You have to study and evolve as a catcher, because otherwise you're not gonna grow. You're not gonna develop to be the best you could be at that position, right?
Yeah, I always tell the younger generation when I'm coaching them, the only difference between me and you is I've failed way more times. I'm like really good at failing and then keep like continuing to go.
So I'm just, because you're talking about, you teed this up, so I'm just gonna hit it out now. So we talk about you're remembered for your successes, not your failures. And then the conversation is, the person who's missed the most shots in NBA history is Kobe Bryant. Leave it at that. The most outs in Major League Baseball history is Pete Rose, but people remember him for what? The most hits in Major League Baseball. Cy Young has the most losses in Major League history. He also has the most wins, and we name an award after him. So the whole conversation we have with people is like, you're remembered for your successes, not your failures, and your successes are direct correlation from how many times you've failed. But people don't look at that. They just like, oh, I'm not really good at practice today, and I'm in grade 8, and I'm calling bad pitches, or I didn't catch that ball, or I didn't block it, or I went 0 for 4. That's part of the, like Mark said, the fertilizer. So can you dig into it? I'm jacked up about it now, but can you dig into some of those failures though that you've had that helped you grow?
One of the pivotal moments in my softball career was there was a junior women's national team tryout. So that was like a 19U team. And like I had said before, I was in grade 8 or 9 playing with these girls that were that age category. And I said, well, they're all going to the tryout. I want to go. And the coaches that were doing the sign up or the online application were like, no, you're in grade 8. Like, I think it was the summer of grade 8 to grade 9. They're like, no. I'm like, no. I want to come. Like, no is not an option. I would like to come. Even if I fail, if I fall flat on my face, I want to know what it takes so that 4 years from now, when it's my time for the 19U and I'm at that prime age, I've already done my homework. I've already failed before the time comes. And it was an incredible experience to just be in that atmosphere. We had national team coaches that were volunteer coaching throughout the thing. And I was like, Aaron McLean, why do you do that at third base? Or like, why do you recover like this and do hot, cold showers? I was just wanting to soak it up. And I went into it expecting to fail and being okay with that. But I think that was back to that male coach that I had that allowed that to be an okay situation. And for me not to feel uncomfortable and insecure in moments like that, but to embrace it because it was only going to propel me forward and forward and forward to where I ultimately wanted to go, which is wearing this word across my chest, Canada. So that was by far the best failure I planned and embraced, by far.
You've just blown my, and I don't even know if I could spit this out properly. Usually I'm the one that's talking, and I'm at a loss for words to say. I don't know many people who would have accepted that and be like, and put themselves in a position of risk to fail with the foresight to think this is going to help me down the road when I'm of age. Because we run into, like, JG and I work with a lot of teenagers now and a lot of athletes that don't want to risk looking bad. But you not only risk it, you embrace that idea, which is mind blowing, which wins. You got an Olympic medal, you got Pan Am medals, like you're wearing that shirt. That tells you what you need to do. People say all the time, what do I need to do to get to the next level? Accept failure.
Yeah. And it was definitely tough. Like, even when the weekend was over and my name wasn't on the next thing, like, I'm a gamer. I wanted to be on that team. Even if I was in grade 8, I was like, I still think I did pretty well. I threw out some girls. I picked someone off at third. Like, I stood my ground. And then I was like, okay, well, like, now what? Like, it still stung a little bit because, yeah, I wanted to play and, yeah, I wanted to represent in the grade 8 category, but you work from it and you learn from it and you move forward. And 4 years down the road, I was ready. So it was worth it.
How were the players? You said you talked like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? How were the players with you?
Oh man, they were enthused. To this day, the one female coach, Erin McLean, who was at that time representing Canada and went to Beijing for 2008. To this day, she was like, no doubt in my mind, were you going to be on this team for the Olympics? She was one of the first people that messaged me on Instagram once we had gotten home from Tokyo and said, like, I knew it the second I met you. And I was like, wow, that is so cool that she was so willing to help me even way back then. And she kind of realized what I was trying to accomplish, even when I was so young. And I didn't really fully probably understand what I was trying to accomplish, but they were eager to help and to level up my learning, because the whole point for them to come back is to give back to the sport and to continue the legacy of the sport and to grow it moving forward.
So,
go ahead,
G. I was going to say, you. No, you.
Oh man. But so them opening their arms, let's just say to you, I'm guessing that's the role you've kind of embraced right now. Is it's full circle with yourself. That's how you yourself see yourselves an ambassador, I guess, for the sport at the same time in our country.
Yeah, I've always felt a sense of pride and a beautiful responsibility with wearing this word across my chest. It's been my ongoing why that I hold myself to another level, because I know there are girls and boys looking up to me. And if I strike out or hit a double or roll over or whatever the case may be, they're watching how I respond. They're watching how I hold myself and my body language when I come out for defense. Like, there's more to it than just the stats. How do you hold yourself? Because I remember being 11 and watching how Team Canada players held themselves. I remember the confidence. I remember the strength and the discipline and the resilience, and also the kindness that Team Canada athletes represented. And I wanted to be a part of that, as well as being part of the sport. I knew there was like both sides of it that I wanted to fully embrace.
I want to tag on to that idea. And you've talked about the development since now you've been in the program now for over 10 years, and and you're still a very young 30. Yeah. And so how have you seen the sport develop specifically for females since you've entered, since your grade 8 experience? Like, you were probably like, it was, I don't want to say niche, but it wasn't now it's popular. Like, you guys, it's really grown a lot. Lots of kids are playing all over the place. It's really good. How have you seen that development over your time?
I think it's really cool to see Softball Canada want to give back as a collective unit to the grassroots, because they see the importance of fertilizing that younger generation, because they're going to eventually take over. But also there's a level of like, social media plays a huge role, and us being able to share our journeys and share our training and do all those things to kind of hype it up and get it excited, like get some sort of excitement around the sport. Like, this is cool. Like, you want to do this. This is fun. This is hard. This is a learning experience. Like, all of those things play a role, but it's cool to be able to give back, go out to do different events, whether it's with Softball Canada specifically or with some of my teammates, and see how much excitement there is about sport, especially after COVID, that young females are like, man, like, I've missed this. I've missed being with my teammates. I've missed being challenged. I've missed trying new things and like learning. So that brings myself and my teammates so much joy to see people hyped up about it, especially because we were put on this pedestal with the Olympics. We had that like availability to showcase how cool it is and how fun it is. And I think we did a really good job showing that fun aspect of our sport.
We had an interview with a friend of mine, Dan Dawson, who plays for the Toronto Rock. And one of the things that he said, which has changed a lot, especially in the last couple of decades, is the accessibility to athletes like yourself. Like, back in the old days, I would not have been on Instagram, and I would not have been able to see all the wonderful things that athletes are doing across Canada. And you posted a picture not long ago of you, and you were running a clinic, and there was you and about 5 or 6 younger girls in catcher's equipment. And I thought, that's it right there. That to me is just an amazing indication of the type of person this is, that, it was position specific is what you're not just going to a general clinic. You're like, this is a tough position to get good at. That's what people don't realize. It is, I would say, catching is one of the hardest positions to play in any sport.
Preach, Mark, preach. Keep going.
Yeah.
To all the catchers out there, until you've done it, I was talking to some kids at school, and they're talking about like, what about this? And we had this argument, like, what's one of the hardest things to do in sport? We said hitting a baseball. And then they were saying, well, what position's the hardest? And we start talking about different things, and goalie and hockey, all whatever. And I said, try to do 100+ squats in a game. And that's just the game, not warm-ups and all that stuff. So you think, multiply that over the career, how many body weight squats you're doing, and hold the bottom for 15 seconds before you get the ball back, and have an umpire lean in on your back. So I don't know. I've got a little soft spot for catchers, so it's okay. But anyways,
we chose this, by the way, which is the absolute crazy part.
No.
I always tell the girls I work with, like, we are advanced infielders. Okay. We need to know that it takes a little bit more. We have that much more we have to learn, that much more time we have to put into it. we usually have that much less specific training. So we have to do it on our own. We need to empower ourselves to go above and beyond, blah, 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 blah.
Get shortchanged on swings because we're doing bullpens.
Yes, exactly. Oh
my God. Don't get me going.
So on that, and so tell us a little bit about your 5 for 5. We're speaking about what you're doing with your teammates and for the younger generation. This is just an outstanding initiative. You want to talk to us a little about the 5 for 5?
Yeah, we realized that we wanted to continue the momentum after the Olympics. We thought we started a little wave and we wanted to continue that. We didn't want it to just kind of flatten and go deadline. So we decided that as a unit, we have more impact than we do individually. That was kind of Team Canada's culture going into the Olympics, that collectively we can make a huge impact as a team moving forward. We work great together, and that was kind of our thing. How can we gel and communicate and kind of thrive as a unit in tough situations? And we were like, okay, we could do this together. We could be talking to people. Each of us have different lessons we've learned, different skills we have, different stories to tell. And that's going to be how we impact other people down the road as a unit and how we connect with one another. So it's been a fun challenge to kind of figure it out and see what it's like to be a somewhat business, because we're all kind of athletes, but learning how we can reach the most amount of people we can moving forward is kind of our ultimate goal, and create a little bit of fun, a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of skill work, all the above.
Mark, jump on with the pre-show about make your bed with the impact. If you've got to bust out the book, because this is exactly what Natalie's talking about impacting other people. Natalie, we just talked about this pre-show. Mark, please read that to her.
Read the book.
Oh, this is
the section that you're going to love.
Your bed. So I'll read this out because I was just saying this is Admiral McCraven. And if you haven't seen, I'll send you the link to the YouTube video. It's just outstanding. But this is what he says. The average American person will meet 10,000 people in their lifetime. That's a lot of folks. But if every one of you changed the lives of just 10 people, and each one of those folks changed the lives of another 10 people, then just 10, then in 5 generations, that means you will have changed the lives of 800 million people. So just the idea of what you're doing is it's fertilizer. You use the word fertilizer. We use the word fertilizer forever. And it's just the idea of just passing it on. It's inspiring to hear that, which is super cool.
That's awesome. I love that.
Super cool.
I'm going to change here. I'm going to get philosophical because you brought it upon. You said this earlier. You said your why. I've been trying. I think I've found my why. I'm not sure yet. And someone had asked me the question, and it's not something you can just kind of like, oh, my why is, and you just blurt it out in 30 seconds. You really have to dig into your soul. If I'm getting deep on that one, you're really, you're not getting superficial with this answer. And it seemed like at your age, you found your why. Does that make sense? And if you have, what is it? And how did you get to that point?
I think it's important to note that my why has evolved, and I'm sure my why will continue to evolve and maybe be layered a little bit. The deeper I go and the deeper I reflect, the more will come out of it. The first and foremost, most foundational why that I've come to is that I want the younger generation to know that you are capable to do whatever you want to do. And it's your actions day by day and your choices day by day that will lead you to that goal that you're looking for. And it's how you act. How you do anything is how you do everything. So it's the little things that add up to where you ultimately want to go. And I live by that, whether it's making my bed in the morning, putting each dish away perfectly in the dishwasher, which my husband hates, or like,
there's a system.
Yeah.
There is a dishwasher system.
But just making sure that they realize that there's a way to do it, and you have to hold yourself accountable to that. And I think if I can lead by example with the way I train, the way I interact with people, the way I study, like everything, then hopefully that will impact 1, 2, 10, whoever it does impact. That's a win in my books. And it will, like you said, kind of ripple effect to whoever's next. Recently, I found out that another why for me is just for the love of the game. And I kind of got away from that for a little bit because it was so demanding, and it was the stream was so intense. but now it's just like refalling in love with it and what the sport has given me, and enjoying that.
It's a beautiful game. It's a
So,
beautiful game.
so two things to that. I want to go with, we talk about a lifetime. So when we talk about a lifetime of, it's what excellence in small things is excellence in all things. Sidebar. Mark and I had a conversation about how we put shams on the bed. That's how detailed we talk about things. I didn't even know they're called shams. I just called them pillows, and Mark, like, there's a name for them. But anyway,
Shams.
yeah,
shams.
wow,
And there's Euro.
shams.
I didn't know this. Lisa
God.
my wife Lisa corrected me the other day. We were talking about shams. She's like, "Oh, that's just a Euro sham." I didn't know there's a difference. They're bigger.
I got 2 Euro shams. I can't say. So, and then come back to a lifetime. And we talk about, if you want to have a great lifetime, that means you have to have great years, you have to have great months, you have to have great great weeks, you have to have great days, and great days, then you have to have great moments. And in that great moment, it's exactly what you're saying, what you're doing on a daily basis. The decision you make now or in the next minute or two is going to dictate that. So that's kind of cool that you came to that revelation, I guess. And then the other one, the love of the game. When I'm going to use myself as an example. So Mark, I'd love to hear from you, and same thing with Natalie. When I find the games, either it's speeding up, or I'm like you, like the training's gotten too crazy and it's just, you're losing yourself, I literally smell my glove. And it just kind of resets, like, man, this, or it's that sound of playing catch in the morning that you're like, okay, this is why I'm doing this again. And this is why I'm waking up early. That's why I went to bed early. That's why I'm eating stuff that I really don't like eating, and all this other stuff. But for me, my reset sometimes is literally smelling my catcher's. I was like, oh man, that was the best thing ever. Do you guys have like a thing that kind of resets you for that environment?
You first, Natalie. You're the guest. You go first.
Okay, thank you. I love that you kind of just ground yourself back into your senses, really. So I would say my thing, I have the honor of listening to the national anthems before most games. My go-to thing, whether it's the American anthem, the Canadian anthem, is I sway, and I'm always looking at the flags, and I'm thinking of what I'm grateful for in that moment. It's the wind on my face. It's my cleat in the dirt. Like, I get to be here. The other day at practice, I said, wow, I'm 30 and I'm hanging out with my friends in a facility playing catch. Like, what a dream, right? So just taking a moment to be grateful is what kind of brings me back to that love in that moment.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, I can't nail it. It's all of it, the sights, the sounds, but it's for me, it's everything. Like, I grew up playing I love baseball, was my main thing that I excelled at, but the sights, sounds, and smells, like this, those sensations, like you say, this for me, catching was that ball hitting the sweet spot and making that pop,
the pop,
that made my pitcher feel good about what they might have just thrown, like a little, like nothing, and it popped the glove, and I'm like, oh, dude, you're throwing gas, like it just, and he's throwing a 60. Right?
This is not a promotional moment, but my Mizuno glove is like well known on the Team Canada staff. Like, can you just like put that glove on? Because like, I feel so great before I go into a game. I'm like, I got you guys. Don't worry. It's going to snap. You're going to feel great.
Okay. Well, let's get on this, because Adam's our Mizuno guy. Between the three of us, he covers us on so many things. And he told me, he says, you got to mention how you are a glove and sneaker head, apparently. And obviously, he says she costs us a lot of money because she has to have so many gloves because she plays so many positions, but you do have some sick gear. And so talk to us a little bit about like, how do you like your glove? For catcher, the way it closes is so critical. Infield, like I got an infield glove too that I like, but it's not the same as my catcher's mitt. For you, like, and they say they listen to you. You're a huge, and we'll get back to the idea of what you do for Mizuno and being a brand ambassador, but you have a lot of influence on product design at Mizuno, and they listen to you because you cover so many positions and you're good. So they're going to listen to what you're saying. So talk to us a little bit about your equipment setup.
Well, first, I'm a leather snob. So my parents owned a luxury leather good company when I was growing up. So it was like handbags and briefcases and all those things. But from a very early age, my parents were like, no, you have to get the highest quality glove. Like it's got to be nice leather. And I was like, okay, I'm like 12, but cool. Like I'm good with that. So from a very young age, I had like really high standards. And then I fell in love with Mizuno and their quality of their product. One of the biggest things for me that is kind of new to the softball world is I wear a baseball first base mitt behind the dish.
Okay.
So it allows me to have a little bit more reach at the sturdy size of 5'2". I feel the ball in my pocket a little bit more. There's a little bit less padding, so I have a better feel. And then it feels a lot lighter for me in terms of moving for picks, for blocks, for reaches, whatever that looks like. But I'm picky in the sense that I like minimal movement. I like it being pretty tight. Like I get it out the bag, and that day I'm wearing it for bullpens, and I'm pretty happy with it. I figure if I catch it in the right spot, I should be good.
Interesting.
So it's on me at that point. I mean, it's less about the shape and it's more about the leather.
Yeah.
So I've always just loved that about Mizuno, that I know that I'm going to get a stiff, hard quality leather that's going to last me, because I do put in a lot of reps and I am here, there, and everywhere. So I need that. But yeah, I do give Adam a lot of feedback, and he knows he can trust me because I'm pretty blunt with him, which I think is good. We've built that rapport.
Well, with their custom glove program now, it's pretty exciting this didn't exist when I was playing. It was like, you got what you got off the shelf. I wasn't obviously on the national team, so it was like whatever I could get, but the custom stuff is really cool now. What you can do, like not just like the look and the color, but just how it feels, how it closes, all that stuff, and the weight, all that. It's just such a great move for them as a company to offer that.
Yeah. And I think the whole trend right now is build your own this, build your own this. So I think it allows a little bit more excitement for the younger generation, even, that they are looking for in a lot of areas in their life. So if they're happy, then Mizuno's going to be happy. So give them what they want.
That's pretty cool. I told the story, I think in our first episode. I've been using Mizuno stuff as far as I can remember, because of the quality of the cleats. It was always Mizuno. And I told the story, I think it was on our trailer episode, and I had this red maple Mizuno bat, and that was my baby. I loved that thing. And it was in October. I would sometimes switch away from maple. Like later on, we're playing in the playoffs, I'd switch away from maple and go to ash, something like that. So a friend of mine, I was putting my catcher stuff on, warming up a guy for the bullpen, and one of my buddies, I don't know, whatever, he couldn't find his bat. He takes my red Mizuno out of my bag and goes, and he smashed it. It's like shattered into bits. It wasn't, I was like, you don't do that, man.
Rookie
you don't
move.
The look, I just remember is like somebody kicked my ice cream off of my hands or something. I'll never forget that as long as I live. So,
oh man,
that guy and I we're not friends anymore.
No, I wouldn't be either. So Natalie, I did a little bit of, I did softball for a while also. In the community I'm at, softball was like a thing. We're not far from Sault Ste. Marie, actually, where Mark's from. So Darren Zach, I'm sure you're familiar with that name in the softball world for pitching. So we got to see a lot of good pitching. It was huge. One summer I came back home from playing collegiate baseball, and I just wanted a break. So I went to softball, a competitive, I guess, enough environment for softball. And it helped me so much. I have a 2-strike approach I like using for hitting in baseball, but I basically use that approach the entire summer for softball. There's just less time to react and the different types of things that are happening offensively with that. But at the same time, the pitching. So I caught again in softball, and it was just like a different world. Everything's coming up and then a drop, and I'm just looking left, right, fastballs here. And then I'm having to adjust a low rise. And then a rise is like over my head, like what is going on right now? Then a drop, and I'm like, "What's your fastball?" I just want something straight, please. Just give me something straight. Like one's up, two's down. I was like, "Oh man, this is so complicated."
Yeah.
But that whole did you have to go from baseball to softball, or right from the get go, you're right into softball?
I was with softball right off the bat, and then I remember when I was about 10, I was like, "I'm bored. Can I play with boys?" Like I told my parents that, and they're like, well, it's a rough time to change now because the opportunity is within softball. Right. Mm-hmm. So I went to their tryouts and I got to catch bullpens, and I was like, this is kind of boring anyways. It's really slow. Like that was my impression of it because of like what you said, the reaction time is so different. So then instead of playing with the boys, I ended up just going into like a higher age category with the girls. But I always grew up catching bullpens from my brother. So he'd be throwing, and I was like, man, this is slow. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm hitting 89 consistently. But you're just like so far away. But don't get me started on the curveball. I couldn't catch the curveball if my life saved. Like if my life was on, it was bad.
And I came home that summer and I'm hitting, and I did a decent job with the drops and low rise. Like I could handle those, but I couldn't handle the rise ball. I was like, I couldn't hit it. So, and the game of softball is so amazing. Like I'm playing in some pretty good tournaments, and it's just such a tight knit community. Like you're talking after the game about whatever happened. You're not like, I hate you because you're on the opposite team. Like it's a really, really cool culture. And I'm walking away, like rolling my maybe a Mizuno bag, I don't know, away to my vehicle. And I'm like super depressed. This guy K'd me like, I think 3 times in a row. And he comes up to me and he's like, you're a baseball player, aren't you? I said, yeah, how do you know? He goes, because I watched some of your games. And he goes, that's the reason you only got rise balls, because I knew you can handle them. You wanted everything down. I was like they just pay attention, right?
Yeah.
You just like, and it's just such a different environment, and you're like, this ball is like a meatball, I'm ready to go. And next thing you know, it's like over my head, like, why am I swinging at this thing? But you must see that often at the beginning when people are just getting used to it, I guess.
Yeah. And even when we first got introduced to the men's side of the game, we were kind of training with them here and there and watching them at Pan Am's in 2015, and their ability to pinpoint a weakness of a batter and then set them up is just like astronomical. They will make you look silly, and hitters risk everything to try to pick one pitch and sit on that one. It's just such a mental game, and they can pick like fingers or like where their glove is. Like they are so involved in each little teeny moment to try to maximize their at bat, because like you said, there's like so little time when the ball gets out of the pitcher's hand and they're crow hopping at you. Like,
oh my God.
Like,
that was offside.
Unfair.
That was so offside when some of the guys were doing that.
I faced Darren Zach.
Did you?
One game, one of my teachers in high school was playing, and they like, it was like you said, they're like, we need somebody come and play. That guy's like a legend. Yeah, probably one of the greatest fastball pitchers. He's got to be the greatest. Ever. He's got to be, period.
Yeah. So did you fail really well that day? Did you learn from your failures?
I said to my teacher,
see how she twists that on you?
Yeah, thanks, Natalie.
Nice job.
It's a learning opportunity.
I appreciate that. Listen, that one was not a confidence builder, but like I was like, hey, I'm a baseball player. I can handle this. Like it's a big ball, right? And I was like, no, I think I struck out in 2 pitches. That's how bad it was.
I'm just going to walk back to the dugout now. I'm good.
Yeah.
But on the catching perspective, when you have some of those pitchers on the national team, when you have the opportunity to, like at any level, I'm just picking yours specifically, when you have the opportunity as a catcher to set up a hitter, and you have one of those pitchers, like you're sitting on the couch and like, I want it here and it's here. I want this pitch here and it's here. Isn't that just like a thrill of like, this is going to be fun, embarrassing this lineup today? Do you have some of those arms on the staff?
Oh, all of the arms were on. Like going into 2020, like Tokyo 2020, I felt like at any moment I was just like, here's my glove, boom, hit it. Like it was just, I always tell the younger catchers I'm working with, like my job is easy.
Yeah.
I just set up and my girls hit me like in that spot. Like they missed by like 2 centimeters. They're like, oh, sorry. I'm like, you're good, man. Like I got you. Like it's fine. So then it becomes, the beauty, the game inside of the game, and really setting those batters up. And what are they thinking? What am I thinking? How am I going to beat them? Not only in their first at bat, but their second and their third. Right. Yeah. So it's been huge working with Kaylee Rafter. Her mind is just, the most beautiful mind I've ever gotten to dissect, if that makes sense. And I'm pleased to say that she's our head coach and that I'll continue to learn from her. But the way her mind works is just like art. And so learning from her and trying to adapt and get that into my brain moving forward, it's just a pleasure.
I think both you'll appreciate this story. So Greg Maddox goes into the Hall of Fame, and they interviewed Lopez, I think was his catcher at the time, or Perez. I can't remember who the catcher was right now off the top of my head. But this is like the game within the game with catching. So he said they are playing the Houston Astros in like July. And the Astros and Braves at the time, they were kind of battling, but they were going to win the division. And the word on the street was, Jeff Bagwell, you do not throw him fastballs in the inner half. And he said the Braves are up probably 4-1 at the time, like in the 6th, 7th inning. Lopez calls fastball away, breaking ball away, change up away. Maddox like, nope. Fastball in. Yep. And then Bagwell hits it out of the park. Game's over. Braves win. They're in the clubhouse. And he goes to Maddox like, what are you doing? Because you guys will appreciate this. He goes to Maddox like, what are you doing? He says, the Astros are probably going to make the playoffs. We'll probably see them in the first round. And Bagwell is going to be waiting on that pitch in October.
And he's never
Bagwell was like, he was 0 for when they played the Blazers in the playoffs. He was 0 for the whole series.
Owned him.
Like,
I love that.
I know, but you're thinking months ahead of
Yeah.
time. Like you're just talking about right now. Like we're not just talking about the first at bat where we're going to let you see what's the second at bat, the third at bat, when are you coming up, what type of situation. But like to think months ahead of time, like that's from a pitching perspective, which those people aren't necessarily the smartest people at all times. But but like that's just amazing. Like you're saying, the game within the game.
And our team was super similar in that sense. Like we had a mission outlined going into Tokyo 2020. If we're going to see this team 3 times before, how are we going to beat those batters, those 3 games, while also holding in our back pocket how we're actually going to beat them when it counts, right? So we had a game laid out from months in advance similarly, and it was just like exciting to be like, oh man, we used our plan C and she grounded out to second. Okay, like that's great. Winning. We still know with plan A, she's striking out or she's rolling over or whatever that looks like. So it was really fun to set that up and to plan accordingly and then to execute. And even if we failed, to like trust the plan and the process of it and like continue.
So, and this brings me into the next part I want to talk to you about, because we've talked about positional stuff, team stuff. Like you've played on some strong teams, some amazing teams. And what makes what can you say, and forget about being good baseball players, what in the locker room goes on to get you guys a bronze medal, Pan Am, silver and gold? Like, what are the things that are people bringing to the table in the locker room? Obviously everybody's super talented softball players, and that's without question, but what do you see? You've been there a long time. That is that winning formula.
Our team has invested a lot of time and energy into our culture. And it was a process. It started, when I first arrived in 2012, it was about who are we? How do we do things? What are our strengths? We were very preoccupied on what other people do and how are we going to defend that? And we didn't really have any idea what's Team Canada? How do we play softball? How do we communicate? What does that look like? So that was our starting point. And it took a lot of tough conversations and building trust through vulnerability and opening up, spending time outside of the field to build those relationships, because we knew that we had some good athletes. But the thing that was going to make us a great team was how we connected and how we handled tough times, because the mud was going to come and it was going to get yucky and we were going to have to kind of deal with that, like all hands on deck, walking through it together. We're an army, like, let's go. And usually with a team that doesn't have culture, it's just everyone kind of like splits away and does their own thing and kind of crumbles. And we were like, okay, that's not what we want. So how do we intertwine our arms and like go forward? It was okay. We're going to be accountable. This is how we're going to do things. This is the expectation that we're setting. We're going to have the tough conversations right when they need to be had. We're not going to go around and talk about things behind things. We're going to just put it all out there and be super clear. Because if we're clear, we know what we need to work on. We move forward. We go past it. And I think that was just like an incredible moment for our team to realize that, okay, it's going to be hard. We're going to fail. We're probably going to screw up. We're not always going to be perfect with the expectations, but like, what do we do when something bad happens? What do we do when we fail, individually or collectively? How do we reflect on that? How do we move forward from that? So that was really important. We always talked about how do we build this championship culture? And what that looked like for us was, if you are really good at your sport, but you're also really good at the relationships within the sport, you'll be a championship culture. If you're just really good with relationships and you have no skill, then you're a bunch of friends just playing. Like, we don't want to just be friends. We want to win gold. That's our goal. And if you are just really good at your sport and you have no relationship, we all know what happens then. It kind of crap hits the fan. Things get tough. There's pressure on the line and you don't thrive. So we wanted to make sure that in those moments we thrived. And that was team bonding, Zoom calls. Like, there was just endless amounts of hours doing book reports. Like, you name it, we did it, because we knew that that was going to take us above and beyond the strength and the skills and the daily work of grinding.
So let me jump in for a sec. So teams have to go through adversity, or individual have to go through adversity. Like you literally have to go through the fire together for you to get to the next level. I firmly believe that. Do you have an example or a few examples of the fire you had to cross as a group, like that adverse moment, and then you dealt with it, the wounds healed it, and it just made you like, wow, like we're way stronger right now?
Yeah. So when softball first got put back into the Olympics in 2016, we were like, yeah, like going, we have 4-year cycle. Let's go Olympics. Like we're amped up. Some people are taking time away from their schooling or their work or whatever that looks like. And then 2017 season comes around and we got way ahead of ourselves. We had the worst season we had ever had. We went to our home tournament at Canada Cup. We were out really early. It was just not a good showing. We went to Japan for some exhibition games late in the season. I don't think we won one. We got back from that season and we said, oh, we have a lot of work to do. Not only physically, but mentally. We were thinking 2020 and we weren't even handling business in this moment. So at that point, it was like, okay, readjust. So we started working. We started leveling out these like expectations of what does our strength program look like? What do our gold standards look like for softball and communication and all of those things? And things were kind of slowly starting to propel and move forward in the direction we wanted it to go. By 2018, we placed third at the Worlds, and not only third in the world, it had been like Japan and US, and then like Canada was kind of going back and forth with Australia, but we came like third. We slapped Australia and did it with like oomph behind it. Like we owned that game. So that was a big step for our confidence. That being said, 2019 comes. This is the biggest season going from this point because it's the qualifiers for the Olympics. So if we don't qualify, the Olympics don't really matter. We had the opportunity to do it on home soil. We are in British Columbia. And when the opportunity came, we were playing against Mexico, and whoever won that game was going to be qualified. Whoever didn't would have to win a following game the next day or 2 days after to qualify for the second spot. And when pressure was on us and we had our fans around us and the opportunity was there, we did not perform. We couldn't handle the pressure. And after that, it was a very, very bitter moment. Like, oh, we put in all this work and like we still couldn't show up when it mattered. Thankfully, we had the next day to qualify and we did. But again, that time of reflection after that season was like, man, we've been working really hard, but are we working smart? How do we reevaluate this? Like we're putting in reps, we're lifting the weights, but are we putting pressure on ourselves in training? Are we holding our teammates accountable when maybe they take a rep off? Like where can we get a little bit better? How can we lessen that gap of where we are and where we want to go? So that was like the big moment of it hurt a lot. And then we had to revamp and we had to have tough conversations that much quicker because we only had a certain amount of time before the Olympics came. And if we couldn't handle the pressure at home for a qualifying event, how are we going to handle the pressure of the biggest moment in our entire careers in front of what we thought was going to be 30,000 plus fans? So that was a big aha moment with our culture and being able to like, hey, you need to be better. And I'm saying this out of a place of love, but you need to be better. You good? Good? Got it. Let's go. Not of, oh my goodness, she said this and everything hurt. Like, which it didn't always happen, but people have feelings and we had to eliminate those feelings and just trust the intention of the people we were around and trust that those relationships were solid and foundational. We all wanted the same thing on our mission.
JG, you and I talk about this too. Like, we said it just in a show that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks, that growth and fulfillment often lie on the other side of going through hell. Yeah. And as a team, sometimes you have to go through that adversity to forge those bonds. Like JG said, like you guys completed marathons with friends, and I've done that with friends and just done like endurance races. And after that, like, what'd you say, G? You got like a bond that is unbreakable.
Oh yeah, you can't.
Right?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. And so it's the same thing. Like sometimes I find you have to hit the lows to find the highs. And it sounds like you guys, you identified it, you corrected it, and you took the measures necessary to end up where you guys did with the bronze medal at the Olympics, which is amazing.
We even went to the extent of purposely trying to put ourselves in a pit as a group. Like, let's find the lows really, really quick. Let's get there. Let's be mentally exhausted. Let's be physically exhausted. And let's get better because of it and deal with it when things were tough, and then move forward. Like we were in Florida training. We'd have like a practice all morning, and it would be like 2-3 o'clock, and we are gassed. We're like, let's do conditioning right now. It's the hottest point of the day. Tokyo's going to be like that. Let's get through it. And some people are like, oh, I'm like, let's go. Like, let's go. This is going to suck, but it's going to suck together.
Mhm.
We're going to get through it, and then we're going to be better tomorrow because of it.
Yeah.
So those moments, once we hit Tokyo and there'd be a tough moment where it'd be, we're down by 1, it said, we've done tough things. This doesn't phase us. Now, what do we do next? What do we do in this moment? What can we control here? Not, oh, this is really tough. Tough doesn't matter. Tough doesn't phase us.
I'm so proud right now as a Canadian to see our national teams grinding that out like that. Like, I'm just hearing you speak, man, and I wish I was more involved and I listened more and paid attention more, but it just makes me so proud that you guys kind of like, you gutted it out basically in a sense. So good on you guys. That's amazing.
Well, it made the Olympics fun. We'd already done all the hard stuff. Then we could just play. Like we could just enjoy what the work had brought us to.
And I think that's what's missing sometimes is, and hearing your backstory to me is like, I see, a lot of people would say Olympic medal, Pan Am medals, like you guys have had the success, but very few people probably get to peek behind the curtain and see those down times, which is like, why is it that you guys enjoyed that so much? Because you suffered together and it made that moment worth all of that suffering, right? So a lot of people don't understand that. Like, that's why it goes back to our original part of our conversation is that failure that stinks, that brought you forward, which is pretty amazing. Now, talking about getting there, one of the core elements of our show is leadership. When you're talking, it takes a leader to say, let's go run when it's 45 degrees outside right now. Let's go run. How does leadership play a role in your team? And not just necessarily the coach, because we always say, it's better to be player-led, not coach-fed. How is it in your team? How is that handled in your team in leadership and stuff like that? Because at your level, I would imagine there's a lot of people that are good leaders.
Yeah, I think everyone in our program leads in their own way. And I think that kind of shined throughout our journey. Sometimes it was someone stepping up and starting that rally to run at 3 p.m. when no one wanted to. Sometimes it was someone initiating something else or a conversation or checking in on someone. So I think it was allowing each person to be a leader in their own way that allowed us as a program to move forward, because each of us had our strengths. Like that was a given, and that was on the field and off the field. As a team, we had created this environment that allowed leadership because there was no judgment, there was openness, there was the ability to adapt and continue to grow. There was an ability to fail and that being okay, because we are embracing a growth mindset. There is the ability to be vulnerable and say something, even if you're not someone that usually steps forward and says something. But the biggest thing for our program with leadership was being very clear and open and transparent with what we were doing, when we were doing, how we were doing it. And I think because there was that transparency, we knew where we were going. We knew we were all leading in the same direction because we were so clear on the expectations and the mission at hand. And we were blessed with a bonus year with COVID to be able to set that standard and work through that via Zoom calls, via individual conversations, all of those things. But like the ability to be that open so that everyone's on the same page was mind-boggling.
So I want our listeners to pay. You just said COVID was a blessing in a way, right? Which is like, for some people like, oh, COVID, this is, and I get that. But, I had the conversation with my own kids who are both athletic and studious and stuff like that. So like, you get two options: come out of this ahead or fall so far behind, it's going to take you half a decade to catch up, both athletically, intellectually, socially, whatever. So that's the growth mindset, because you could have said, well, this is shitty because we're not practicing, we're not playing, we're not doing this. But you took that opportunity and you flipped it, and you took it to the chance to learn more about each other and develop that culture, that championship culture, which is amazing.
Let me be clear. There were moments where it was tough. Like, I'm not perfect. And there was challenging moments mindset wise, but as a whole, we did a really good job utilizing that year to our advantage to say, we are going to outwork our competitors and be smart with how we're training with this time, whether we're in different countries, different weather temperatures, lack of facilities, whatever that looked like, we're going to make the most of it. We did, I think, a 6-week virtual camp, and we played every single game in our head together. We game planned every single batter we were going to face, how we were going to pitch them, how we were going to shift our defense. We knew everything. So when we got into the Olympics, it was just like clockwork, just like, we've done this before. Like, we've already played this tournament. We know what we're doing. So that was really cool. And not only that, we just adapted and made the most of whatever we had. We had girls throw their chocolate lab on their back to do back squats. Like, whatever it takes, we'll get it done. Like, it's not going to be pretty, but we are going to be ready when the time comes. And I think collectively, Team Canada, not just Softball Canada, showed up with that mindset come Tokyo 2020. They were ready. And it showed based on the way people performed, the medal count, all of those things. So it was really cool to see. It wasn't just Softball Canada. It was like the mindset of Team Canada in general. And that made me proud to see all these other athletes in the same grind mode mindset. Like, they were ready.
You used the word, excuse me, earlier, vulnerable. How hard was it for you specifically to be like, for me, vulnerability, I opened up with Brene Brown on Netflix. I watched that episode, and that was like, man, this, like, I didn't even look at things that way. And you mentioned that word, because vulnerability is a tough go. It's like it's going to sound weird here, but I feel sometimes like you're walking around naked. You're like, oh, like, I'm going to get judged. Like, what's going on here? So as a team or as an individual, like, I'm circling back to you, how was it to be, what did that look like, being vulnerable to your teammates?
It was really hard, but it was needed for our team. And so as a group, we decided that we were going to take on that hard. I remember one particular moment. So I don't know if you guys know my role at Team Canada. I'm the blank Scrabble piece. So I play all these positions. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm like, you like that, right?
Yeah, I do.
I'm not necessarily always the starting catcher or the starting third baseman. I'm in my coach's back pocket, and he's like, man, you are so valuable, because when I need you, I can put you in where it helps with the team. And so throughout our training camp in 2020, before the world kind of shut down, I remember we were in Halifax. We were living at an army base. It was kind of like the grind time. We were in the pit. It was really tough. And we were talking about all these vulnerable conversations. And I remember going into Kaylee Rafter's room, like, hi. And she's like, hey, what's up? I'd been on our team for whatever, but I idolized Kaylee. I think the world of her as a human, as a teammate, as a softball player, all the above. And I said, I'm struggling. I want to be my best self for you, because if I can save you some games and be those legs, then you're going to be better off come that final game or whatever big game you may be in. But I also want to be as ready as possible, that if anything happens and you need me, I can fill in, and like, we're good as a catching unit. And that was really hard to accept, because it's hard to accept that you're not the starting person. I'd always been the starting person with every team growing up. I was always like the star. And then you come to Team Canada and you're one of many stars, which is a beautiful problem to have. She said, okay, sit down. Okay. She's like, did you know in 2008 I was you? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I was the backup catcher, the pinch hitter, the pinch runner, the third baseman, the first baseman. I was you. I get it. It's hard. Your job is hard. And I want to be there for you if you need anything. And I want you to be there for me, which I can feel moving forward. And we're going to tag team this, and we're going to handle it, and we're going to dominate because we have one another. And that moment of risk to go into a room and expose how I was feeling when she's someone that I should be like supporting nonstop was like so tough. But that moment to connect and be like, hey, we got this together, made it so cool down the road to be like, Raph, I got you for innings 5, 6, and 7. Rest your legs so we can go crush tomorrow. And I remember we did like runs, like relay runs the same way. And her and I would be partners. And it was just like, I got you this lap, and I'm going to give you 100%. And then you're going to go for your leg. And it was just this ability to connect that much more as a catching unit, as our little like bullpen love right there. That made it just that much better and easier to be able to be with her. And she understood what I was going through, and she understood I had her back. Like, there was just so many benefits moving forward. And that was one of hundreds of conversations our team had that just kept building those networks between each other to strengthen that bond. So when things were really hard in a game, I looked at her and we already knew, like,
Yeah.
We were on the same page. There was no words that needed to be spoken. It was like, keep going. I'm like, okay, I got you.
We call those courageous conversations. Now I'm listening to you tell this story and I'm thinking the other side of that, the opposite side. So you made a choice to go knock on her door and have that conversation. That's the hard. The easy is you as a star player, top athlete, one of the best athletes in the
I know
nation,
where you're going with this.
right? You want to finish my thought on this, G?
Blame, complain, and defend.
Yeah, it's blame, complain, defend, and you're like, I should be the starter. You could have become an arsonist on Team Canada and burned it down from the inside with the wrong mindset. But for people that are listening, because I know we have some young listeners, it's the idea of not being selfish. And then, look what you accomplished as a team. You went way further as a team. If you would have taken an individual approach, maybe you guys don't go as far as you did. So to me, these are important. This is why we do this. This is what the purpose of our show is to show people what takes to get to there. That's leadership. Vulnerability is a part of leadership. Some people could say, well, that's a sign of weakness. You walked into somebody's room and said, well, I'm not okay. That is not a sign. That's a sign of strength. And that's a sign of leadership. And some people don't get that, which is frustrating. The people that don't get that are probably not listening to our show. So
true. Very true.
Yeah, which is amazing. So just kudos to you, which is like, it's just awesome.
Sorry, I want to talk to the blank piece on Scrabble here for a second. So
I'm never going to be able to look at that little piece the same. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to draw your jersey number on that now. My wife's like, why is this on here?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to, and then Mark, do what you got to do after this one. But how did you deal with being the piece of the puzzle? Because I've been in a few of those situations, but your at bat, when you go an example in an at bat, your at bat means almost like 10 at bats for a regular quote unquote starter, because it's microscoped. The innings you come in during the game are microscope, because if you have I don't call them pass balls. They're all wild pitches in my opinion. But anyways, if any of those scoot by, it's like magnified, because like I only got 2-3 innings to prove myself. And then it looks, everything gets magnified for those types of situations. How are you able to deal with those types of situations or environments?
That's a really good question. I think I try not to make it too big of a deal.
Good. Okay.
Like I try to make all the time elsewhere as preparatory, and I'm ready for this. So part of my journey with kind of accepting, embracing that blank Scrabble piece was, okay, what is this piece? What is its value? How do I own that confidence? And how do I own what I'm doing in the role, but also be ready if my role changes and pivots and switches to this or switches to this. So that being said, when I'm called upon, whether it's in the second inning, the sixth inning, for one at bat, for one pinch run, whatever it is, it's like, I'm ready. And just kind of rolling with it and just being in that present and giving my best quality moments in that moment. Not expecting that I need to be perfect for 3 innings if I'm in for 3 innings, but what can I do in this pitch? Okay, what can I do in this pitch? And just really like breaking it down as much as possible. And we had a fantastic mental performance coach, Wade Gilbert, that I will brag about for the rest of my life, that honed in on that for us, so that our mindset was one pitch. Okay, one pitch. Okay. And just like very calm. Blue head, no red head, blue head. One pitch, one pitch, one pitch. Release, one pitch. So that was really cool. And I had confidence in what I could do. There were pass balls aren't a thing.
No. Roger that. Roger that.
Well said. Now, there's Natalie. We've talked a lot about the athletics part, and you talked to us before the show, like you're a student as well, and you're studying to be a naturopath. Like this is it's not just an athlete, right? There's multiple facets. So away from the field, if you have the opportunity to tell people that what they want to know about you, if the game stopped tomorrow, what would people say about Natalie?
Oof, lots, hopefully. Lots of good things, hopefully. So yeah, I'm going to go back to school in September and finish my naturopathic medical degree. I am also on the verge of buying a gym with my husband and opening that. So an entrepreneur on the side, I guess. And I also love to coach and speak. So I do a lot of speaking, whether that's in elementary schools or high schools or to sports specific groups, organizations, businesses, anything you can think of with team dynamic and culture. That's my bread and butter. I love that. I love making people work or helping people work better together, and utilize their individual strengths and see those individual strengths to help the collective group, really.
Wow. This is
I
another
also have
show.
a dog. I also have a dog, Luna.
Luna.
Yeah.
I hear you like donuts too. That was another part of the scouting report. Good donuts too. And like good donuts.
A good donut and some good peanut butter. Like those are my like go-to guilty pleasures. If anyone wants to holler at me with some good suggestions, my ears are open.
I love it.
Mood
Now,
food.
I ask this to every one of our guests, no matter how veteran they are. You're young still. Let's take you back. Let's say if you could go now, you started talking like big time important stuff when grade 8. So I don't even know how far back to take you with this question, but let's just say back to your first year in the national program. If you can go back in time and talk to 20-year-old Natalie, what would that conversation look like? If you can give her one or two pieces of advice, what would that conversation look like?
I wish I could tell Natalie, 20-year-old Natalie, that Scrabble piece is something that not many people have, the ability to be a blank Scrabble piece. And I should hold tight to that. And I should learn to love that role a little sooner. I was very insecure about it when I first started with the national team. I was also very excited to be on the national team, but I also didn't know what that role was or the beauty in it. So I wish I could have just like, you're really cool. Like you do a lot of things really well and you need to own that. So yeah, I would have just kind of gave her a shrug and a little confidence boost, hopefully. Thankfully I did learn about it, but I wish it would have been sooner.
So there's a message to our young athletes listening to the show. If your coach asks you to step away from your comfort zone and play a different position, the answer is yes.
Always yes.
And I've always said to my kids, I was like, if the coach asks you if you'll play a different position, you say, Coach, I'll drive the team bus if you want me to. Like, just put me wherever. That's the correct answer, right? So
in 2015, we were in the Pan American Games in Toronto, and it was a similar situation where Kaylee was the starting catcher. I would catch certain games when she needed rest and whatnot. And then the night before the playoffs started, my coach had an individual meeting with me. I'm like, what's going on? Like, what? He's like, so here's the deal. You're going to play first base tomorrow. And I'm like, I just have a quick question here. I've actually never played first base. So what are we doing here? He's like, yeah, you're a catcher. Just catch the ball. You're good. I'm like, okay, so tomorrow's the playoffs. All right. Okay, I'm good. Like, cool. So I ended up playing a position I had never played for, I think, 3 playoff games, and we ended up winning gold. And I remember my teammates being like, that was cool that you were ready and just kind of willing to roll with it and just give it your all in a weird, uncomfortable situation when everything was on the line. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah, but like bunt situations, you're up front and center and you got no gear now. Like it's like playing first and third in softball is like, you got to be nuts. At least behind the dish, we got gear, but like you're like, face
or the
lefties
that like hit for power, but also drop a bunt. You're like, I'm actually just going to stay back here. If you pitchers can just handle those bunts, I'm good.
Exactly. Come on, get over on a lefty. Come on, get over.
Yep. Yeah,
oh my
that's
God.
Amazing.
So I wanted to ask one here. Sorry, Mark, before we, tough out. I read this about you. I think that was the greatest compliment I think any hitter could receive is being a tough out. I literally, like, you can hit for power, you can hit for average, but when you become a tough out, you're like, I hear that as that you're a team player, really, when I hear a tough out, because you're seeing more pitches, you're grinding things out, you're setting the table for everybody else. That's what I hear when I hear a tough out. We've heard that about you specifically. That's a mindset. Like I firmly believe that is a mindset. So what is your mindset to be such a tough out?
I am going to be as annoying as possible to this pitcher, and I'm going to tire you out until you give me what I want. That's always been my thing, is that I will just until I get the pitch I want and I can do something with it. But that being said, it's about having a quality at bat. And what does that look like? Grinding. Even if you're 0-2 and it's not the place you wanted to be, okay, I'm not done. What can I do now? Okay, I'm going to work it to 3-2. Now I'm going to have 3 more foul balls. And then I'm going to drive something up the middle. I don't care if it's a jam shot up the middle. I don't care if it's a blooper. I don't care if it's a double in the gap. I'm going to make something happen and outwork whatever situation I may have gotten myself into or circumstances got me into. But I'm going to make the most of that to finish with a quality at bat. Even if that's 10 pitches, I learn a lot about the pitcher and I pass that on to my batter on deck. That's a win in my books. I'm not looking for perfection. I don't expect that from myself or anyone else.
Don't be perfect, be present. Love it.
I don't want this to end. So what we give homework to our listeners every week, something for them to think about and ponder before the next show, in between shows. And we ask our guests to provide them with like the best piece of leadership advice or anything that they think they should pass on. You'd already kind of segued this talking about how you like to go out and speak and coach and speak to like younger players and coaches and businesses. What is your main message? What would you want to leave with our listeners as your main message?
I think what resonates with me the most and what brings me the most passion and joy is to empower others, to empower them to own their choices and their decisions, to empower them to own their mindset and how they choose to see things day in and day out, and to empower them to take their strength and use it to their advantage and not worry so much about maybe their weaknesses, just to see that strength and keep it close. But I want them to individually wake up each morning, kind of own who they are and what they do on a daily basis. That is my favorite thing. And hopefully it makes an impact with the speaking I do.
G, anything else? This is like...
Yeah, I've been waiting for this one. You talked about you had to do book reports. So if you could also recommend to our listeners a book, a must read book, what would that book be for our listeners?
Just one?
Holy smokes. 2, 3,
okay,
go ahead, man. Whatever.
You're the
whatever.
guest. We got to be nice. Whatever.
Yeah.
I have 3, but I'll say one. And then if people really want to reach out
we got
to me,
time.
Give us 3.
Okay,
Give
okay,
us
okay.
3.
Okay, my number 1 would be a book called The 4 Agreements. I remember my strength coach at college gave it to me when I graduated, and it's the 4 are be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And that's like softball field, school, relationships, all the above. I think I read it once a year. And then this one's kind of fluffy, but I really liked it and what it did for me. It was The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. And it encouraged me to say yes more often to opportunities and have a fearless approach to where things could take me.
Glad you said yes to this. Okay, next.
Yep. It has led me down some very important networking opportunities, but just like personal growth, like unbelievable. And then my final one is In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. So it's all about you chasing lions when they're scary, usually run away from them, but chasing big opportunities and leaving no regret at the door, just like going after it. So something my teammate and I always say to each other is like, are you being a lion chaser right now? Are you chasing that big lion? Like, are you going for it? She's like, you're right, let's go. So those are my 3 favorite.
So cool. Love it. Love it.
I'm good. I'm not good, but I'm good now.
I know. I just want to, I keep doing what I can to drag this on. But I know. It's a school night for Jean-Gilles. So,
here we go.
But listen, honestly, it's been amazing to have this opportunity to get to talk to you and know you more a little bit like this. And obviously we see what you do out in for Team Canada, but this is amazing. And what you're doing, not only presently for the team and our country in terms of representing it, but what you're representing for the future generations of athletes out there, and not even necessarily softball players, but anybody looking to be the best they can be. But good for you. That's amazing.
Yes,
and,
thank you.
Yeah. And good luck with your sport, your studies, your business endeavors. We wish you all the luck, and hopefully you'll still come and talk to us another time. We always like doing a follow-up show with people down the road, see how they're doing and catch up. So hopefully you don't get too busy for us. So we appreciate you being on the show.
Maybe we can do it in the Mizuno office.
I know that would be Adam's dream. He would be awesome with donuts and gloves and shoes, and we can have Luna on the show. We'll do that. We'll set that up with Mizuno for sure.
And before 9 p.m.
And
Yes.
before 9 p.m.
Absolutely.
Yes.
For all of you listeners, I'm a morning person. But here I am.
Well, that's a good book too. Winning Back Your Mornings is a really, really good book. That's
Oh.
for some people. It's all about using that time early in the morning for yourself to do what you need to do. And it's a really powerful book. It's a good message.
I'm going to look that up for sure.
Well, that does, sadly.
Yeah,
does
I was
it
waiting
for-
for that. I knew you were going to throw that tag in there. 'Cause it is, sadly. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, that does it for this episode of Benchmarked. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Keep crushing it.